This is CBN NewsWatch.
It is Thursday, June 3rd, 2021. I'm Ephraim Graham. Ahead today, it looks like a new political era may be dawning in Israel as an unusual coalition of political parties with very different views come together to oust Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. We'll have a look at what it means and what could be coming next from Jerusalem. Expect more cyber attacks after the latest hit against a major meat processing company, and the FBI says a Russian gang was behind it. How much power does the major media really have? We're going to hear some answers. One journalist who studied the influence, and he was a leading official of atheists in Kenya society until he resigned because he gave his life to Jesus Christ. All those stories and more are ahead in this edition of CBN NewsWatch. We begin this half hour in Israel, where opponents of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu are pushing for a quick parliament vote to formally end his tenure after 12 years. The coalition is made up of more than 8 parties from across the political spectrum who have the common goal of ousting Netanyahu, including even an Arab faction, a first in Israeli politics. CBN News Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell brings us the story from Jerusalem.
Members of the coalition called it a new beginning.
Today, we succeeded. We made history. We held our promise, as we always promised you to tell the truth and to do what we said we will do. Tonight, we've succeeded.
The coalition of parties from right, center, left, and for the first time in Israel's history, an Arab Islamist party united around the main goal of bringing down Prime Minister Netanyahu.
Throughout the last campaign and also for the last 2 months, I reiterated and promised that the Labour Party would make every effort to form a government that would replace the Netanyahu regime.
Bennett, a religious conservative and a former ally of Netanyahu, and Lapid, a leader of the secular left, agreed to rotate the office of Prime Minister, with Bennett going first for 2 years and then Lapid for 2 years. Yet it's uncertain this fragile coalition will last that long, and if their common animosity towards Netanyahu will be enough to keep their government together. The 8 parties in the coalition represent ideologies from opposing ends of the political spectrum. Former U.S. ambassador to Israel told CBN News the question is if they can work together.
This is a very unusual government as it is laid out because while they are unified as a coalition, they've never been unified in terms of the political principles upon which they have built their parties. So what I'm waiting to find out really is, not what is the unity that brought them together, because we all know that's relatively shallow, but what are the unifying principles upon which they will govern?
The agreement still needs to be approved by a Knesset vote early next week. If sworn in, it will prevent the country from going to its 5th election in just more than 2 years and end the 12-year rule of Netanyahu, the longest-serving prime minister in Israel's history.
Chris Mitchell is here now for just a bit more. So, Chris, how fragile is this coalition?
Well, Ephraim, it's very fragile. Parties with one goal, as we said in that report, all they wanted to do was oust Prime Minister Netanyahu. So that's in the first minute. They can do that possibly. But what happens in the second minutes? Because they're so various in their ideology. One political commentator said here in Israel, it's like a car with 4 wheels going in different directions. Another one said it's sort of like Chinese food. Fills you up for an hour, but what then? So many feel that new elections with this new government are going to be coming to Israel actually before the 2022 midterm elections in the U.S. That's why so many people see real fragility in this coalition.
What are the differences between these various political parties?
Well, they're huge. For example, Judea and Samaria, other people call it the West Bank. Some people in the coalition, they want a 2-state solution. They'd be willing to give land back to the Palestinian Authority. Others in the coalition, they want annexation, even declaring Israeli sovereignty over some of the land in Judea and Samaria. So that's one big difference. Gay rights is another. Part are for them. And then there's others, for example, the Arab Party, Ra'am, is actually opposing gay rights. So that's another thing. And then one one other thing, major difference within the coalition, Ephraim, is courts and justices. Some want activist judges, just like they do in the United States, and others want conservative judges. In fact, that was one of the sticking points in the negotiations. One of the members of Yamina wanted to make sure she was on a committee to be able to choose conservative judges. And one other thing I'd mention, Ephraim, is that Bennett himself, Naftali Bennett, he's really untested. He only has 7 seats out of the 120 seats in the Knesset, so he really doesn't have a mandate to lead, and many in his own party are upset with him, and many of the people that voted for him are upset. They're really 60% of the people in his party are upset that he's actually joining this government, and the new government is bound to be tested by either the internal pressures, as we talked about, or right away by Iran, Hamas, or even Hezbollah.
So what's going to happen in the next 10 days?
Well, the next 10 days, there'll be a vote to actually ratify and solidify this new coalition. Now, the first step was taken last night when Yair Lapid got to Israeli President Reuven Rivlin and said, I have a coalition. And then now the Knesset has to ratify this new government. So for the next week or so, or maybe a few more days, the pressure will be on some of the members of this coalition to defect. That could be from Yamina. That could be from New Hope Party. And if one or two of those people would leave the coalition, it would make a huge difference. And then there would either be a government if they stay, or they could go to 5th elections.
So what is the outlook for Benjamin Netanyahu at this point?
Well, right now, if the coalition gets ratified, he'll be out of power, and he'll be in the opposition. The Likud, with 30 seats, would be a powerful opposition to any of this coalition. But the greater danger, Ephraim, is not necessarily that he's in the opposition, but the internal pressure from his own party, the Likud. There are others right now that would actually like to replace him. And so this weakens him. In fact, there was someone just the other day, his name was Edelstein. He was the former Speaker of the Knesset. He's the number 2 in the Knesset, the Likud party, and he's already said that he would like to replace Netanyahu. There's others like former Jerusalem Mayor Nir Barkat would like to replace him as well. So when you see that internal pressure from his own party, that really is perhaps the greater danger to Benjamin Netanyahu. But we'll see what happens in the next week or so. A lot of things could still happen. Netanyahu could still remain prime minister. We'll see. And Israel still could go to new elections. It's sort of like Game of Thrones over here, Ephraim. We really don't know what's going to happen until the last episode.
At this point, every hour, every day counts. Thank you so much, Chris Messer. Much appreciated. The FBI says a Russian criminal gang was behind a cyber attack on the world's largest meat processing company, affecting operations in the United States, Australia, and Canada. The ransomware attack on JBS Foods this past weekend is just the latest in a growing number of hacks against a variety of institutions and businesses, including transportation systems. George Thomas has the details.
JBS, the nation's second largest producer of beef, pork, and chicken, halted operations in all 9 of its meat processing plants. The company's IT servers in Canada and Australia were also affected.
JBS is another example of a major consumer company being impacted by organized crime, seeking to impose costs so that they can get paid a ransom.
The attack coming a month after hackers hit Colonial Gas Pipeline, causing a gas shortage and forcing thousands of gas stations to close.
Okay, first it was oil, now it's agriculture. What's next?
JBS expects to have all its plants back online today after what the FBI says was a cyber attack from a criminal organization based in Russia.
Preliminary reports suggest that it was a hacker group called Revil, or ransomware evil.
The White House saying it confronted Moscow on this latest attack and plans to discuss the matter when President Biden meets Russia's President Putin later this month.
This will certainly be a topic of discussion, that harboring criminal entities that are intending to do harm, that are doing harm to the critical infrastructure in the United States is not acceptable. We're not going to stand by that. We will raise that, and we are not going to take options off the table.
On Wednesday, hackers disrupted ferry services in Massachusetts, and New York's Metropolitan Transportation Authority revealed its subway system had been compromised in April. Those services had not been disrupted. Meanwhile, the JBS attack putting pressure on a food supply chain that's already facing constraints. With labor and transportation costs up compared to last year, the price of beef, pork, and almost everything else soaring, even before the attack.
We could see some prices shoot up even more. If it continues for more than a week or so, we could maybe even see some shortages at the meat counters again.
Experts saying that even if the world's largest meat processing company goes offline for a day, the impact could have ripple effects.
Efficiency is good when things are running great, but when it's not, it can really throw a wrench in things.
Security experts warning that cyber attacks are now the new norm.
Guess what? They went after our gas and they went after our hot dogs. No one is out of bounds here. Everyone is in play, and every single corporate executive needs to be convening their cybersecurity teams and their business resilience teams today to understand what their continuity plans are.
George Thomas, CBN News.
Coming up, despite all the progress made against COVID-19, some people are still hesitant to get vaccinated. So President Biden, some governors, and others are pushing people to get their shots. We're going to tell you how they're doing it when we come back.
I am Region's first ROTC graduate student.
I'm Ephraim Graham, and this is Studio 5. Cruise with me as I discover the good things happening in the world of music, sports, television, and movies.
The fact that Ryan Coogler was going to be directing the film, I knew that something special was going to happen.
We'll chat with artists at the forefront of entertainment and explore the connection between popular culture and faith.
I asked my pastor, I said, well, does that mean I'm supposed to be a preacher? He says, well, no, you already have a pulpit.
Wednesday night at 8:30 on the CBN News Channel.
How'd you like to get a redo on your health, on your body, on your arteries, so you could have the energy you had 20 years ago? The great news is you can. I'm Dr. Mike Roizen, chair of the Wellness Institute at the Cleveland Clinic. I've written 4 New York Times bestsellers. But even better than having to read all that, you can listen to this DVD and watch it. Protect your heart? Yes, you can. Here's how.
Go to CBN.com or call 1-800-700-7000 for your free copy of Protect Your Heart. Let the medical experts show you their new discoveries on how to avoid heart disease and even reverse it. Easy steps to uncover the hidden dangers in your medicine cabinet, reduce stress, and get a complete do-over for your health. Call 1-800-700-7000. That's 1-800-700-7000. Or go to CBN.com to claim your free copy of Protect Your Heart.
Daily average cases of COVID-19 are the lowest they've been in a year. Hospitalizations are down, and the death rate has fallen more than 85%. Still, many Americans remain skeptical of the vaccines. Jennifer Wishon reports on the blitz by the president and some governors to get more shots in arms.
Today, 52% of Americans are fully vaccinated. To reach his goal of having 70% of Americans fully vaccinated by the 4th of July, President Biden is kicking off a full-court press.
To make it easier, Uber and Lyft are offering free rides to vaccination sites. Some facilities are providing free childcare for parents, and pharmacies will remain open around the clock on Fridays in an effort to eliminate excuses.
If you are unvaccinated, you are still at risk of getting seriously ill or dying,
or spreading disease to others.
Moderna has joined Pfizer in requesting full approval by the FDA, an authorization polling suggests will encourage 1/3 of those unvaccinated to change their minds. 12 states have already met the president's goal of 70% vaccinated.
We can finally shake hands, talk to each other, enter places without masks. This is the way it should be.
Las Vegas is now open at full capacity.
Man, it feels great. Just seeing the crowd, the energy, the people, everything open up. It's awesome. It's great.
But vaccination rates remain low in many southern states. Some governors enticing citizens with mega cash prizes. In West Virginia, get a shot in the arm to win a chance to score a gun.
We're going to give 5 custom hunting rifles and 5 custom hunting shotguns away.
The president is deploying the vice president, first lady, and second gentleman to southern states to encourage people to get vaccinated, hoping to employ the help of hairstylists and barbers.
Something new: if you've been vaccinated, you may not need a booster shot. That from scientists studying how the body remembers viruses. More research is needed, and they say virus mutations are a wild card. Jennifer Wishon, CBN News.
Still ahead, just how much influence does the major news media have here in America? We're going to hear from one journalist who's examined that issue in depth right after this.
To have sex before you marry is a bad idea.
Don't tell me there's no such thing as gun violence.
That just depends on your definition of when life begins.
Watch Dan and Dale tackle trending topics that test your faith on the next Faith Wire. Monday night at 8:30 on the CBN News Channel. The Global Lane takes you around the world, providing facts over fiction.
What might rising trade and geopolitical tensions mean for you on the home front?
With over 45 years of experience, award-winning journalist Gary Lane brings you the truth from a global angle.
What about the issue of immigration?
World news analysis you won't see anywhere else.
And it's all right here on the Global Lane.
Thursday night at 8:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Is policy driving the major media and what it reports, or is the media driving policy? On this week's edition of The Global Lane, Breitbart editor-in-chief Alex Marlow says media business and political elite are not just on the same side. They are now one and the same.
It's a combo of two things, and I undertook a year of research digging into this exact topic. And the first one is not as surprising probably to your audience, and it's from our cultural institutions. As we've kind of gotten away from God and country as the focal point of our education system and as our cultural system and move towards this sort of woke leftism and secularism, it's going to produce a lot more liberals and leftists. The thing that was really shocking to me, though, when I dug into this over the course of a year, was the corporatism, the nature of how many of these companies are designed to report news, not just news from a liberal perspective, but from news that benefits a globalist international perspective that helps their business climate, which is pretty stunning. But if you think about it, it makes perfect sense. If you look at ABC News, it's really part of ABC Disney, which is mega interests overseas, including in China. How about NBC, which is really NBC, Comcast, Universal? It's all these mega conglomerates with globalist interests that really don't focus on American values and even what's in the best interest in reporting to the American public.
Senator Tom Cotton and Donald Trump were raked over the coals for suggesting over a year ago that the COVID-19 virus may have actually leaked from the Wuhan, China lab. And now establishment media are reporting, well, that may be the case. So why this initial denial and now this shift? Your thoughts?
Yeah, why the shift? Probably because they can't get away with it much longer. Biden's in, the pandemic's winding down. China kind of got away with everything. And to my first point about how protecting corporate business with China overseas is a huge importance to the Democrats and to these media conglomerates. But I do think right now what's very interesting is all of these sides were rooting for the pandemic to have originated from the Wuhan wet market or elsewhere. Fauci, who had funded that Wuhan lab. Biden, who wanted Trump to be wrong about everything. All of them were hoping it was just the wet market, some sort of fluke virus. None of them wanted it to come from that lab. Now, we don't know for sure if it came from the lab, but we do know there is not sufficient evidence to suggest at this time it came from the wet market, and the lab was right there. So it stands to reason it's a reasonable option. But if you saw the censorship, literally people getting thrown off the internet, thrown off of Facebook for suggesting it could have been the lab, I do believe it's because of these vested interests that it was so important for them to prove or to at least suggest that it couldn't have been something that was China's fault. Because if it's China's fault, then there have to be consequences for China. And if there are consequences for China, that hurts global interests for the businesses.
Well, back to China in a moment, but you write extensively about the Trump-Russia hoax. For 3 years, members of the media, especially Rachel Maddow, were obsessed with Russia, Russia, Russia. And then they shifted to Trump's alleged quid pro quo with the president of Ukraine. So why this obsession, Alex? We now know, in fact, that none of this proved to be true.
Yeah, this was an amazing thing to document because we're all familiar with the story. But when I had to really immerse myself in it and just to piece together the fake news stories one after the next, it paints some of these figures in the American media that you would normally think of as sort of liberals or leftists. They actually come off as conspiracists. They come off as almost WWE pro wrestling people who are reporting some sort of fiction. And Rachel Maddow is the star of this. I mean, she comes off almost like a kook in the book. And I know she's a very bright person. She got a Rhodes Scholarship, so she's got a reasonably high IQ. But she kept peddling to her audience this phony narrative that Robert Mueller debunked. But then they stuck with it, and they stuck with it. And to this day, you'll even hear people like Adam Schiff, for example, cite the Russian collusion hoax as if it wasn't a total fraud. And it just shows you how many people in our media are living in an alternate universe.
And you actually suggest that China is the bigger threat to the U.S. and media companies, corporations are in bed with this U.S. adversary. You talk about kissing the communist ring. That's in a chapter in the book you titled Beijing Bloomberg. It's about Michael Bloomberg and Bloomberg News. And you mentioned the spiking of an investigative report about corruption and the family of China's President Xi. Tell us about that.
He's really almost more like a Napoleonic figure. He's got a massive totalitarian streak. We saw it when he was mayor of New York, banning big gulps, and he's a big gun grabber, and he funds almost every corner of the Democrat Party. But he's also really gone out of his way, including flying to Beijing and literally meeting with the top propagandists in Beijing in order to preserve the business interests of Bloomberg LP, which is his gigantic business news company. And when he's come back with these contracts that allow him far more access to any other American competitor. And he is able to get all this news and to be able to sell product into China, et cetera. But what this does is it ensures a certain level of obsequiousness to the Chinese regime, and that includes excluding human rights abuses in China, mass amounts of pollution in China. I document it all in the book, but it's pretty stunning how far Bloomberg is willing to go.
Okay, there's a lot more that we could discuss, but we're out of time, Alex. The book is Breaking the News, Exposing the Establishment Media's Hidden Deals and Secret Corruption. Alex Marlow, editor-in-chief of Breitbart News, thank you for joining us.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
And for more stories beyond the headlines, be sure to check out the Global Lane this evening at 8:30 Eastern Standard Time. You can find it on the CBN News Channel. Coming up, an atheist leader in Kenya comes to Christ and tells church members about his decision. We're going to have his story and the reaction when we come back. Stay with us.
Daddy?
Yeah, buddy?
How many nickels are in a dollar?
There are 20 nickels in a dollar.
How do birds fly? Does milk really make my bones stronger?
Yeah.
Daddy, when we die, will we go to heaven?
Do you have the answer to life's biggest question? Call the 700 Club. We'll help you find answers to the important questions life brings your way.
Watch breaking news, in-depth exclusive stories and programs from health to entertainment you won't find anywhere else. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. Enjoy credible news reporting from around the world. Discover inspiring programs and stories of hope, all in one place from a Christian perspective. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. To watch the CBN News Channel, download the app or visit cbnnewschannel.com.
Hello, I'm Dr. David Perlmutter, board-certified neurologist and #1 New York Times bestselling author. Wouldn't it be great to boost your energy, eliminate brain fog, and even reverse brain disease? Well, you can, and I'm going to show you how, along with some of the world's most well-respected brain experts in this DVD, Protect Your Brain.
Get Protect Your Brain, a free DVD only from the Christian Broadcasting Network, featuring experts on the cutting edge of neuroscience and brain health.
No matter how many times you've failed in the past, you really can do this.
In Protect Your Brain, you'll discover simple strategies to keep your brain young and healthy. Improve your memory. Discover the gut-brain connection. In Protect Your Brain, get your free copy at cbn.com or call 1-800-700-7000.
If you want to improve the quality of your life, get the DVD Protect Your Brain and get it today.
Watch breaking news, in-depth exclusive stories and programs from health to entertainment you won't find anywhere else. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. Enjoy credible news reporting from around the world. Discover inspiring programs and stories of hope, all in one place from a Christian perspective. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. To watch the CBN News Channel, download the app or visit cbnnewschannel.com.
Your news channel, your shows, the stories you care about. Anytime you want, anywhere you want. Download the CBN News app today.
Seth Mahiga, who served as secretary for the Atheists in Kenya Society for less than 2 years, officially resigned from his position with the group on Saturday after giving his life to Christ. In a video posted online, Mahiga shares the good news with a group of church members. He told them, "I've been going through some difficulties in life, and then I decided to resign as secretary, so I'm happy to be here." Atheists in Kenya President Harrison Muima said in a statement, Seth's reason for resigning is that he found Jesus Christ and is no longer interested in promoting atheism in Kenya. We wish Seth all the best in his newfound relationship with Jesus Christ. People on social media praised Mahiga for his conversion, and they thanked God and gave God the glory. Time now for your Thursday Thankful. Let's take a moment here. I hope you will join me in this prayer of gratitude. God, I thank you for your grace. I need it more than I thought I could, and certainly more than I should. I need your grace. Thank you, Lord, for your grace. That will do it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. You can always find more of our programs on the CBN News Channel. You can also find them online at cbnnews.com. We'd love to know what you think about the stories you've seen here. You can email us, newswatch@cbn.com. And of course, you can always reach out and touch us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Hope you'll join us again right here next time. I encourage you to make today a thankful Thursday and join us right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.